Well, Hurricane Sandy now to blame for another casualty, this time on Grand Bahama, where scores of residents are in search of shelter. The island took a pounding from the storm with strong winds, rain, and high tidal surge. Our Joan Davis-Roll has more from the north.
A day after the destructive force of Hurricane Sandy descended on Grand Bahama, resulting in the death of a Queens Cove resident, forced the closure of roads, the evacuation of communities due to flooding, and left many residents distressed, officials of the National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, gathered to give an overview of how this island fared. Leading the charge at the press conference held at NEMA's office in the National Insurance Building was the Minister for Grand Bahama, the Honorable Dr. Michael Dowell.
Once again, throughout the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, through the grace of God, we have fared well as a result of the devastating effects of Hurricane Sandy. The update from meteorologist Cook James clearly indicate that Hurricane Sandy is now past the northern tip of the island of Abaco and is now moving northward into the Atlantic Ocean. This is good news for the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, but we must not let our guards down because we are still experiencing some of the effects of Hurricane Sandy.
Minister Dowell reported on the loss of life and the destruction of other areas.
Reports coming from West End to Sweetens Key is clearly indicating severe flooding to the northern side of the island of Grand Bahama. Grand Bahama has officially, to my understanding, reported its first death in the Queens Cove area, and it is that of an elderly man who resides in the northern part of Queens Cove. All emergency support teams are on the road assessing the situation on the island of Grand Bahama, and all of our shelters from West End to Sweetens Key is still officially open. Reports from West Grand Bahamas confirm that many residents had to be evacuated from the northern part of the island more towards the Boodle Bear area, and I got a recall about 10 minutes ago of someone who was still in the process of evacuating some individuals who have experienced severe flooding.
Minister Dowell reported that Grand Bahama power officials, along with GB Utilities, were working feverishly to restore electricity and water supply to the island.
The Grand Bahama Power Company is also assessing the extent of the damages, and the Grand Bahama Utility Company have sent their team to their necessary wells to determine exactly what is the extent of their damage.
Immediately following the press conference, the minister conducted another assessment. This included the search for vital commodity, an abundant supply of drinking water, followed by a return to the area leading into West Grand Bahama, the Fishing Hole Road, a thoroughfare which remained closed for the second consecutive day, but despite warnings saw motorists risking their lives to cross.
I had to go in four-wheel drive.
To get out. All right, so no recommendation to pass through an ordinary vehicle? All right. Okay, thanks a lot.
The lack of residents heeding the warnings was also a major issue for officials. Foremost on the minds of many, though, was the death of a Queens Cove resident who, despite a personal plea by the minister, refused to evacuate.
Very much a sad situation. Emergency vehicle was in the area. We made contact with the gentleman. He insisted that he didn't want to leave. It's always sad. It tells us right away here in Grand Bahama that the low-lying areas of Grand Bahama, we should have a mandatory evacuation prior to a hurricane. That death was, as far as I'm concerned, was avoidable.
Massive flooding here on the island of Grand Bahama, obviously a major concern for residents. Now it's all about recovery. This as residents try to pick up the pieces of their lives following the passage of Hurricane Sandy. Reporting for ZNS Network News, I'm Joan Davis-Roll.